first up, we do want to talk about this developing story. The nationwide search does continue today for Brian Laundrie. An autopsy confirmed the body found in Wyoming on Sunday is Laundrie's fiancée, 22-year-old Gabby Petito.
We also know that her death has now been ruled a homicide. Now, the exact cause of death is still pending. It will come out with the full autopsy results. Her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, has been named a person of interest. Authorities have been looking for him since Friday when they tried to speak with him at his parents' home in Northport. Investigators are searching a nearby nature preserve where his parents said he went hiking before he disappeared. A search warrant shows troubling phone conversations that happened between Gabby and her mother, in which there appeared to be growing tension between her and Laundrie. And joining us right now to talk more about the case is our good friend and attorney, Whitney Boan. Always good to see you, Whitney. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
There's a lot of frustration about this case, right? There was a frustration that, police were not keeping a better eye on Brian Laundrie, that he was able to get away, that there was this delay between the time he disappeared and when police actually were told that he was gone. What are some of your thoughts about what has been happening?
Well, I understand everyone's frustration, especially at this point when there's so much that seems so overwhelmingly suspicious, if not even more damning than that. But at the same time, law enforcement is very methodical about how they approach these investigations, because how they react now can affect how they're able to prosecute a case or not later when it's assigned to prosecutors federally or on a state level. So I understand that people are frustrated. I understand that it seems like every moment that passes that we all even don't have answers and her family doesn't have answers, that this is somehow a gross injustice. But I think everyone needs to take a step back and realize that while there's so much that's so dumbfounding here and overwhelmingly confusing about this in terms of why we don't have answers, the time that it takes to get these answers will give us those answers.
As far as the obligation of the parents, Whitney, to cooperate with investigators, I want to talk a little bit about that, because there is this time frame where we know that they did not see their son after Tuesday, but waited 3 days to alert the authorities. Did they have an obligation to let the authorities know that their son had disappeared?
I don't know that legally they did at this point. Now, again, we may find out more later, but at this point, there aren't enough facts that are at least publicly known, in my opinion, that would demonstrate that they've done something that shows that they've acted as accessories after the fact, as we call it in the law, to help him get away from prosecution here or law enforcement investigation. In other words, at the point in time that he disappeared, from when we have now learned he actually did disappear versus when it was reported by his parents, he was not technically an official suspect of law enforcement. He might have been a person of interest. Obviously, he was being looked at to some extent, but I don't think that his parents had an obligation, legally at least, to let authorities know prior to when they did that he was not coming back, or did not come back, I guess, from his hike.
As far as this autopsy is concerned, how important is that in the investigators then being able to call him a suspect and not a person of interest anymore?
This is pivotal, and it's huge, because obviously the manner of death has been called homicide. We're not going to know quite yet what the cause of death was, which would be standard anyways, but especially in a situation like this where there was likely some decomposition of poor Gabby Petito's body prior to it being located, because it was out in a public park, basically, with wildlife and the elements exposed to her body, then I think that we're going to have to wait to hear what some very specific experts have to say beyond just the coroner. In other words, a lot of times entomologists or scientists who are specialized in the area of insects would be able to help us isolate perhaps when she died. Right now, I'm sure, we have a lot to suspect here. There's obviously been damning evidence related to Brian Laundrie, but I don't know exactly that they're going to be able to prove the time of death or what that time of death would be, or if it's going to be a window of time. And that's going to affect whether or not he can be a suspect as well, because investigators are going to have to be able to show that she died during a time when she would have or could have been with him.
Were you surprised, Whitney, that they have lost track of him? I guess a lot of people feel like, gosh, you'd think that there would have been officers stationed all around that house to keep him from getting away.
Honestly, a little bit, I have to say, just because, and I'm not criticizing law enforcement. Like I said, there's a lot that we don't know that they know at this point. And that's strategically done because law enforcement doesn't want to do things that compromises its investigation. As it relates to his location, I'm a little bit surprised because just in my line of work with 2 decades of doing criminal defense work, I know what's happened over the years and evolved in terms of investigative means that law enforcement has, that in this day and age, they can know anything, so it's not difficult for them to keep an eye on someone. They have very sophisticated means of doing that actually involve minimal effort and sometimes don't even involve search warrants having to be signed by a judge because it involves having surveillance in public places. However, like I said, I also err on the side of not judging too quickly, because I don't know what they knew or what they didn't know, or maybe what even they did do that we don't know about yet, but that they couldn't act on perhaps.
Well, there's certainly a lot of hope that he is found. Whitney Boan, thank you so much. We always love having you on the show.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for having me.
To
Have a great day.
You too, Danielle.